Good morning, everybody. Welcome to my wood shop. It's significantly smaller than the one at work, but it will do for now. And I promised to teach you how to use the router, so I figured I could do that today. It's a really easy tool to learn. It only has like one moving part. This is slightly different than the one we have at school, but they all do basically the same thing. I have a whole bunch of different types of bits that I can show you how they work. Do a little demo for you today, and then hopefully you can pass the safety test like we normally would in class. So yeah, this is my basement shop. I have a table saw that I'll be using as like a demo space, I guess, for now. Lots of tools and things on the wall, a radial arm saw. I have a bandsaw over here off camera that you can't see. There's a chop saw down here that I don't really use often because I have this radial arm saw that's really nice. Drill press and scroll saw and stuff are over on the wall, and there's a red, let's see if I can, yeah, there it is. There's a red metal lathe right there. If I don't often use that, but sometimes you need it. It's a small space. Lots and lots of stuff is packed in here, but I can build just about anything with the tools that I have just in this room, which is pretty cool. So back to the router, right? So the idea of the router is for detail work. So you would have to pick a bit. Let me see if I can get closer here to show you. This is like a standard bit set that you might purchase, and they give you an idea of what they do down here. So like this one is a cove bit, and it carves out like a corner like that. I like the round over bits, maybe like this guy here, right? And these are all 1/4 inch shank, which means that the bottom of this is a 1/4 inch. At work we have 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch ones. They do the same thing. You just have to make sure you have the right holder on your router. So what we're going to do today, I'll try this first cove bit like I was just talking about and show you how it works. So the first thing you're going to need to do is take the cover, this housing, off of your router. Mine is easy to release with this single switch there. The one at work is very, very similar. The collet here is a 1/4 inch. You would put the tool into the collet, tighten it down by hand. Mine has a push button to lock the arbor. Some of the ones at work have that, and some of them you need 2 wrenches. This one just needs 1 wrench, and you just want to tighten that like a 1/2 turn or something. Just make sure the bit doesn't come out of it. Okay. When you put the shroud, the cover back on, whatever is sticking out here is going to be cut. So, if you have too much of it sticking out, the wood will actually go in that gap, and that's not good. So you want just the round over bit sticking out. Okay, so we're going to do something like that. All right, it is just for detail work, really, so what we're doing isn't critical, but it is nice to have it a uniform edge around it. Something else I should note while we're here. Some of the bits, like these guys up here, do not have a bearing on the end, okay? And some of the ones on the bottom here do have a bearing. So the ones on the bottom are just for edges, because the bearing prevents it from cutting into the wood. If you're trying to cut into the wood, like making box joints or something, you want one without a bearing on the end, and that will allow you to cut into the board. All right. Move that out of the way. Grab a piece of scrap, looks like cherry. I'm going to plant that to my table here so it doesn't run away. You would do the same thing at work, at school. Grab this guy. There's a bank of plugs on the wall right here that you can't see. Put on my safety glasses. I am going to watch out for ties and strings on my hoodies and stuff like that. My sleeves are rolled up. I have no jewelry on, things like that. And this one's much smaller than the ones we have at school, so you can probably do this one with one hand, kind of like this guy. But it does help to have an extra hand on it as you go. This surface, this base plate, is going to ride on the surface of your board, and you're going to try to keep this stable and keep this flat as you go. On and off switches here, and mine has a speed adjuster. Some of the ones at school have that, and some of them don't. But basically, whatever you have sticking out is what's going to cut. And it's pretty easy. I'll show you how it works. stand it up when you put it down because the bit will cut into your table. And what I've done here is cut away this corner. Okay, I can maybe make another shot of this and show you, but that's just a detail. Now this one burned a little bit there, so I'm gonna have to take some sandpaper and get rid of that. But you would go all the way around on your stool and take the edge off and just make it look a little detailed, a little fancy. Okay, and that's it for that. This might be a better angle for you guys to be able to see what's going on. So again, I have my board clamped here, my little hand router here, and I'll go over this new corner to give you an idea what this is supposed to look like. By the way, the grain is running this way on this short piece of cherry, so I'm going to go along the grain and then come in on the end grain. That's going to prevent the corner from chipping off. So if you consider you have a spinning tool as it goes around and it gets close to the edge, if it's spinning, it's going to maybe break off that corner. So if you have that same spinning tool and you work in across the grain, it oftentimes doesn't split. But we'll find out. So set this on here, keeping my hands out of the way. Sometimes it's nice to hold the plate. Sometimes you have those big handles at school. So I'm going to keep it away from the board when I first turn it on. Bring it into the board. Turn it off. Pull it up so it doesn't cut my table saw when I put it down. And that's the edge there. Okay. Something like that. A little burn right there, but that's where I stopped. There, and that's what your stool should look like all the way around. So, something else you can do with your router. I have changed my bit over to a bearingless square 1/4 inch bit. Okay, so it just cuts a square 1/4 inch slot. And I don't have space, first of all, but I also don't have a router table. So I built this box. Actually, it was a box for something completely different that I needed a box for. And then that didn't work out, and I needed a router table for a project I was working on. So I turned this box into a router table. So if you take that same collar off of my router and I screw it on here, it lines up with that center hole, and I can mount my router in here. Undo the buckle. Line up the pins, and that will seat in there. And then I can make whatever amount I want stick out of the top. Okay, so let's say, and if I were doing this for a real project, I would measure how much that is sticking out, and with like a micrometer or like a really accurate steel ruler or something. I would do test pieces to make sure everything fit. All right. Once I get that locked in, I can either leave it on my bench or fit it into my vise, which sits right in here. Okay. Now I have a router table. Now, turn this a little. This has a slot I cut with my table saw, and it has some holes from some other things that I was using. You can hook on like a light or a vacuum or something like that and clean up your mess. This slot fits a miter gauge. Now we have miter gauges on our table saws back at school. I built this one to do 1/4 inch box joints. I'll show you kind of what that looks like. But this would fit in here, and this will slide back and forth, and it will allow whatever scrap piece or a piece that I'm cutting to slide over the top of this bit as I go. The reason this makes 1/4 inch box joints is because of this guy right here. Okay, this is a 1/4 inch, and it's 1/4 inch high, and that allows a 1/4 inch of the bit to slide by here. And as I cut this, right, see how that lines up. I would take my board, I would slide it up against my stop block and make a cut, and then I would put that notch that fits on there onto the block and slide it through and onto the next block, and I would work my way down like teeth of a comb or something, keep working my way down. It's a cool idea. It works really well. I actually built, where'd it go? I built this napkin box for the kitchen with this exact setup. This is 1/4 inch oak and cherry glued together, so you get like a nice edge. I use the same bit to recess in a dado all the way around and glued in this solid piece, so that kind of moves in there. And then all the corners are 1/4 inch box joints. See that? And I did them all on this handmade, homemade router table. And it came out kind of nice, right? A little finish on there. Boom. All right. So that's another option. Isn't that cool?